Good evening, traveller. Wherever you are listening from, be it beneath the rustle of cotton sheets curled in the corner of a quiet room, or resting with earbuds beneath the hush of twilight, I welcome you. Tonight, we'll drift gently through time, through dust-covered corridors, faded royal portraits, and stone-carved names long forgotten. We are looking for kings, but not the ones you already know. No, these are kings who wore crowns not meant for them. Kings who carried secrets in their bones. Kings who were women. The histories that survive, those weathered records and proud monuments, often shout the names of men. But some truths do not shout. They whisper, like wind through palace curtains, like sandalwood smoke curling into the rafters of an ancient temple. And if you listen softly, as you are now, you might just hear them. You see, power wears many masks, and the mask of masculinity, of the king, the pharaoh, the emperor, was often a required disguise. To rule, one had to appear strong, and to appear strong, one had to be a man, or at least appear to be one. What we explore tonight are not simply histories, but dreamlike spaces between what was seen and what was real. These are stories of women who stepped into the roles of kings. Some did so openly, their bodies wrapped in the armour and titles of men. Others slipped into disguise, never revealing their secret until death, or never at all. Some ruled for months, others for decades. Some were erased, others were immortalised, though their true names were lost beneath layers of legend. But all of them remind us of a quiet truth. What is hidden is not always lost, and what is called a lie may simply be a life no one expected. Let your thoughts wander with mine now to the lands of the Nile, where gold glints in the sand and the gods watch silently from carved stone faces, to a time when Egypt stood proud and tall, her temples glowing in the desert heat, her people kneeling before the throne of a ruler unlike any other. Her name was Hatshepsut, but they called her Pharaoh, and when her story was first carved into the walls of her grand temple at Deir el-Bahari, she wore the beard of kingship, the cobra crown, the skirt and regalia of a man. And yet, beneath the linen and ceremony, she was born a woman. You might imagine her now, standing quietly at the edge of a sunlit courtyard. The air is dry and warm. Palm trees sway lazily in the distance. Her eyes are dark and watchful, her face still. Servants move quietly around her, brushing dust from scrolls, pouring wine into stone cups. Somewhere, a harp plays a soft, repeating tune, but her mind is far away. She's not thinking of song or drink, she's thinking of power. Her father, Thutmose I, had died. The throne passed to her young stepson Thutmose III, a child, too young to rule, and so Hatshepsut, daughter of a king, wife of a king, and stepmother to another, stepped in. At first she acted as regent, a helper, a guide, but regents fade, and Hatshepsut did not fade. She became pharaoh, and the kingdom did not fall. To become pharaoh as a woman was not simply a matter of courage, it was a transformation of image, of identity, of public truth. Her statues began to change. At first she was shown as a woman, slight, slender, bare-breasted, but then, slowly, the carvings changed. Her chest flattened, her jaw squared. A false beard, worn only by male pharaohs, was added to her chin. The people bowed. The priests nodded. The gods, perhaps, stayed silent. For 20 years she ruled Egypt. Peacefully, prosperously. She built temples, opened trade, and carved her name into the very bones of the kingdom. Not as queen, but as pharaoh, as king. And when she died, history tried to forget her. Later pharaohs defaced her statues, scratched her name from temple walls, and buried her memory beneath rubble. Why? Because she had broken the rules. Because she had ruled too well. And because she had been a woman. But stones remember, and now so do we. So tonight, as the stars begin their slow turning above us, let us travel deeper. Let us walk the quiet path through other stories, other kings who wore other names, some in secret, others in open defiance of expectation. Let us wander into tales whispered across centuries, across continents, about the ones who ruled from behind the curtain or atop the throne itself disguised in plain sight. The fire is low, the winds are gentle, and sleep is already near. Let's begin. Let us return now, slowly, to the heart of the desert. The air is warm, soft with dust, and heavy with the scent of myrrh. It clings to the skin like a memory. The sun lowers behind the cliffs of Thebes, its light melting over sandstone walls. In the stillness of the evening, a breeze lifts from the river, carrying with it the low murmur of temple chants and the dry rustle of papyrus leaves. This is Egypt in her golden age. And at the centre of it all, wrapped in linen and silence, stands the woman who became a god, Hatshepsut. She was born into royalty, the daughter of Pharaoh Thutmose I, a royal child surrounded by priests and scribes, statues and scrolls, raised in the heart of the palace where walls were painted with the stories of the gods. She would have walked those halls with soft feet, watched the rituals and listened to the deep, slow voices of elders telling stories of Horus, Osiris and Ra. But stories do not stay still, and neither did she. When her father died, the throne passed to her half-brother and husband, Thutmose II, a union of duty, not desire. As queen, Hatshepsut stood at his side, beautiful, quiet, expected. But fate had more to ask of her. Thutmose II died young, leaving behind a small boy, Thutmose III, barely old enough to walk, let alone rule. And so, as the kingdom waited, as the river flowed on and the stars spun above, Hatshepsut stepped forward. At first, she did what any royal woman might do. She became regent, the temporary guardian of the boy king's throne. She held court in his name, issued commands and received offerings. But then, something changed. Slowly, quietly, step by step, she began to claim the role of pharaoh not just in function, but in name. She began to wear the symbols of kingship. The striped Nemes crown, the one you've seen in carvings, pulled tightly over the brow like a tiger's pelt. The false beard of royalty, braided and stiff, was tied beneath her chin. The kilt, the crook and flail, the ring of authority. She took on the 5 royal names of a pharaoh, including the throne name, Mat-Kare. Truth is the soul of the sun god. And the people accepted her, or at least, they did not refuse. Statues were carved, first gentle, showing her as a woman, delicate arms, narrow waist. But then more statues came, and more, with broader shoulders, with squared jaws, with no breasts, and the regalia of a man. The transformation was complete, not of her body, but of her image. She had become a pharaoh, and more than that, she became a god. In Egypt, the pharaoh was not just a ruler, he was divine, a living bridge between people and gods. For a woman to wear that mantle, something deeper had to shift. The scribes and priests crafted a new story, that she had been chosen by the god Amun himself, that he had visited her mother in the form of the king and fathered her, not as a man but as a god. And so, Hatshepsut was divine by birth, not a woman, not man, something more, a sacred mask, a vessel for heaven. Outside, the world moved on. Traders brought goods from faraway lands, gold from Nubia, incense from Punt, and lapis from the east. Hatshepsut opened trade routes, built obelisks that still pierce the sky, and commissioned temples that shimmer with colour even now, thousands of years later. The greatest of these was her mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari, a tiered jewel nestled against the cliffs, its steps leading upward like a staircase to the stars. There, on the walls, she left her truth, or at least the truth she wanted remembered. She had ruled wisely, justly, for over 20 years, and when the time came, she disappeared. No grand pyramid, no golden tomb. Her body was hidden, her memory slowly erased. Later pharaohs, perhaps Thutmose III, perhaps his sons, chiselled her name from monuments. Her statues were smashed, her image scratched away. For centuries it was as if she had never lived. But stones remember, and so do stories. In the 19th century, archaeologists stumbled across her temple. They puzzled over the statues, masculine, yet somehow not. The names confused them, the forms were blurred. Only later would they realise what had been done, that this king had once been a queen. A woman had ruled Egypt as pharaoh, and for a time the world believed it. You might wonder now, lying in the quiet dark, why she did it. Why become a man to rule? Why not remain queen, mother, regent? But perhaps that is the wrong question. Perhaps she never became a man at all. Perhaps she simply became more than what was allowed. A shape beyond shapes. A being of divine authority, not bound by body or name. The gods of Egypt were not one thing. They were lion-headed and ibis-faced, cow-bodied and falcon-winged. They shifted, combined, and flowed between forms. Perhaps Hatshepsut followed that divine pattern, changing shape not to deceive, but to transform. In that way, she was no fraud. She was a myth, alive, a story, walking. And now, as the sand sleeps beneath moonlight and the river hums its low song, we drift onward, past Egypt's stones, past its silence, to another story. A kingdom across the water, rich with drums and firelight. A king who ruled in shadows. A woman, erased too soon, but not forgotten. 3. The warrior. King of Dahomey, King Hangbi. The rains have come to West Africa. You can hear them, soft at first like whispers through tall grass, then harder, louder, until the sky itself seems to speak in rhythm. The red soil drinks slowly. Thunder rolls far away, gentle and deep like a drum played by the gods. It is the 18th century. A new kingdom is rising, the kingdom of Dahomey. It is a land of warriors, of queens, of strong roots and louder legends. A land where stories are passed not in books, but in songs and smoke and memory. And in the centre of one such story, wrapped in mist and missing pages, stands a king. Her name was Hangbe. And for a moment in time, just a breath in the long hours of history, she ruled. Some say she ruled as a woman. Others say she dressed and lived as a man. Many agree on this. She was king. Not queen, not consort, but king. And that made her dangerous. To understand Hangbe, we must begin with twins. She had one, a brother named Akaba. Together they grew, trained, and watched the shape of their kingdom take form. When their father died, Akaba took the throne. His rule was steady, though short. In the middle of a military campaign on the edge of war, he died, and the people looked to his twin, to Hangbe. She took the throne with quiet strength, not as a placeholder, not as a wife, not as a mother, but as a ruler. In some tales, she wore the clothes of a king. In others, she bound her chest and led soldiers. In all stories, she led. She is said to have commanded respect, to have taken part in rituals, ceremonies, and war councils. The army followed her. The people obeyed her. For a while, Dahomey had a king who was born a woman. But that time did not last. Her younger brother, Agaja, wanted the throne. And in the way of kingdoms and bloodlines, what is wanted is often taken. Hangbe was pushed aside, erased from royal records, her name scratched out from scrolls, forgotten in palace songs. Some say her portraits were destroyed, others claim she was hidden, her reign turned into rumour. For years her story lived only in whispers, carried in the wind, spoken in secret, passed from elder to child with cautious breath. But stories, like seeds, do not die easily. In the town of Abomi, once the heart of the Dahomey kingdom, there is a shrine. It stands quietly among others, its walls faded, its offering simple, calabash bowls, feathers, bits of cloth. It is said to be the resting place of Hangbi's memory. Here, women still come to sing her name. They dance with wide arms and painted faces, not in mourning but in pride. In their movements, you can see her, strong, poised, unbending. They call her king, and no one argues. Some say Hangbe founded the Agoji, the all-female army of Dahomey, later known as the Dahomey Amazons, a fierce group of warrior women trained from youth, fearless and loyal. They guarded the king. They went to war. They refused husbands. Some believe they were modelled after Hangbi herself, her spirit flowing into their discipline, their pride, their silence. Whether she created them or simply inspired them, her influence lives in their legend. But Hangbe's power was more than military, it was spiritual. In West African thought, kingship is not just rule, it is balance. A king is chosen by the ancestors, guided by the spirits, responsible not only for laws, but for harmony. Hangbe held that balance, if only for a short while. And though her name was buried, the land did not forget because earth remembers footsteps, and thunder remembers voices. Even now historians debate her existence, how long she ruled, what she wore, and what name she used. But these questions, though useful, are not what matter most. What matters is this, that in a kingdom where men ruled with swords and drums, a woman once sat on the throne. She held the staff of power. She commanded armies, and for a time, no one dared call her anything but king. She may not have worn a crown made of gold. She may not have carved her name in stone, but she ruled just the same, and tonight she rises again in your mind, soft as rain on leaves. You can see her now, can't you? Sitting tall on a carved wooden stool, eyes sharp, skin glowing with sweat and pride, a royal cloth draped over her shoulders, a blade at her side. Her voice is clear and low as she gives her command. No one questions her, not then, and not now. The rain still falls in Dahomey, in the lands that became Benin, and in its rhythm, if you listen closely you may hear her name, Hangbe, King. Let us walk now through old streets, cobblestone and cold. Mist curls low along stone walls. A bell tolls faintly in the distance, hollow and slow. It is the sound of ancient Europe, of cloisters and candlelight, of secrets whispered in Latin behind heavy wooden doors. In this quiet space, where time moves slowly and truths blur like fog, there lives a story. It is the story of a pope, but not the kind you expect. Her name was Joan, or at least that is what the legends say. Pope Joan, they call her. A woman who rose through the church disguised as a man. A woman who read holy texts, debated scholars, and slowly climbed to the highest seat in the Christian world, to the throne of St. Peter, to the title of Pope. Now, some say this never happened. There is no proof, that it is only a myth, an echo from the Middle Ages, passed from monk to monk, embroidered with fear and wonder. But tonight, we're not chasing proof. We're walking in possibility, and possibility, like dreams, needs no permission. The story begins in the 9th century, or the 11th. The dates shift like the turning of a page in a book too old to trust. Somewhere, in a small village, perhaps in Germany, perhaps in England, a girl is born, clever, quiet, curious. She learns to read, first in secret, then in shadow. Books are rare, women readers rarer still. But she finds them. She studies Latin, Greek, and philosophy. Her mind becomes sharp, bright, beautiful. But knowledge for a girl is not safe, and so she becomes something else. She binds her chest, cuts her hair, takes a man's name, some say John Anglicus, and dressed in plain robes she travels, first as a scholar, then as a monk. Her learning shines brighter than suspicion. She moves from monastery to monastery, rising with each debate, each answer, each prayer. In time, she comes to Rome, the heart of the church, and Rome welcomes her. They see only a brilliant young man, humble, wise, devoted. He's given greater tasks, trusted with decisions, loved by the people. When the time comes to choose a new pope, all eyes turn to him. And so, she becomes Pope, Pope Joan. For 2 years she rules, fairly, kindly. She brings peace to church disputes, listens to the sick, walks among the poor. Her voice becomes one of reason in a world of power and pride. She believes she is safe, but no mask lasts forever. There are many versions of what happened next. The most common says this: while riding in procession through the streets of Rome, Pope Joan begins to feel ill. She clutches her belly, stumbles, a crowd gathers, and there, before the eyes of cardinals and priests, she collapses in childbirth. The shock ripples through the crowd like thunder, a cry of pain, a cry of revelation. Pope Joan, a woman, a mother, and just like that, a story becomes a scandal. What happens next depends on the telling. In some versions, she dies there in the street, her body trampled by the angry crowd. In others, she is dragged away and imprisoned for life. Some say her child lived, others say both perished, but in all stories the discovery ends everything. Her name is removed from the official lists, her memory burned, buried, erased, but not completely. For generations it is said that new popes during their coronation were required to sit on a special chair, one with a hole in the seat. A young cardinal would reach underneath and check, to make sure, to confirm, to prevent another Joan. Whether true or not, the ritual existed. The chair still exists, and so the legend lingers. Some historians dismiss her. No records, no papal coins, no proof. Others point to gaps in the papal timeline, to strange inconsistencies, to long-lost letters, to the persistence of the story, whispered for centuries by people with nothing to gain. But proof is not the point. Pope Joan is not a story of evidence. She is a story of fear, of possibility, of what happens when someone steps beyond their place and shines too brightly. For those who believe, she's a symbol of hidden brilliance, of a woman so gifted, so wise, that even the greatest men of her time bowed before her, without knowing. For others, she's a warning, a parable told by the church to remind its flock that lies will be punished, and that women, no matter how clever, should not wear crowns. But perhaps Pope Joan is something else entirely, a mirror held up to history, asking us not what is true, but what could be true, asking us to look closer at every statue, every painting, every forgotten name, and wonder, who was really there? Who was beneath the robe? Who held the power, even when they weren't allowed to? And who still does? So now, as the mist settles around these old Roman streets, and the bells toll once more in the far distance, we leave Joan behind, not forgotten, not judged, simply remembered. Her story may be a myth, but myths, as we've seen, often hold more truth than history. And in the quiet moments before sleep, when your mind floats like a leaf on a dark river, you may find yourself walking beside her, a gentle figure in white robes, head lowered, hands clasped in thought. The crowd has not seen her yet. The mask still holds. For now she's still Pope, and the world still believes. The moon is full over Japan. It hangs low and pale, like a pearl in the sky. Below, the land lies still. Bamboo groves sway in the evening wind. Lanterns flicker behind paper walls. A stream murmurs softly between stones. The year is lost in time, somewhere between history and legend. And somewhere, beneath the silence of the stars, a warrior waits. Her name was Tomogozen, and she was more than myth. In the days of feudal Japan, when clans rose and fell like the tides, and honour was sharper than any sword, there lived a woman who wore armour. She rode into battle with her long black hair flowing behind her. She carried a naginata, a curved blade on a long staff, and wielded it with the strength and grace of a master. Tomogozen was not just a woman among men, she was a warrior among warriors. Her story begins in the Genpei War, in the late 12th century, a great civil war between two powerful families, the Taira and the Minamoto. It was a time of chaos, of shifting loyalties, of blood and steel. Tomoe fought for the Minamoto. She served under Lord Kiso Yoshinaka, her commander, her lord, and some say, her lover. She led troops into battle. She fought with unmatched skill. Chronicles say she could face 10 men alone and leave none standing. She was beautiful, they said, with fair skin and long hair, but her strength was such that even seasoned samurai feared her. In one battle, she is said to have taken the head of a mighty warrior, throwing him from his horse with a single blow. In another, she broke through enemy lines, her horse tearing through mud and fire, her blades singing in the wind. But all legends, even the brightest, must one day fall silent. Yoshinaka's time came to an end. Betrayed and surrounded, he knew he would die, and so he turned to Tomo and said, "Leave, escape, do not die here beside me." Some say he was protecting her, others say he was ashamed to fall beside a woman. Either way, she obeyed, and then she vanished. The scrolls grow quiet, the records stop. Tomo goes and disappears from history, but not from story. Some say she fled into the mountains and became a nun. Others believe she wandered the countryside alone, her blade hidden beneath her robes, her heart filled with ghosts. And then there is a softer whisper, a gentler tale, passed from voice to voice, like wind through the reeds. It says Tomo did not disappear. She transformed. The legend says she shed her name, bound her body, and re-entered the world as a man. Not just a man, but a lord, a leader, a ruler of a quiet region far from the courts of Kyoto, where no one asked questions and everyone respected the figure who ruled with silent grace and sharp justice. They say this lord never married, that he spoke little, that he moved like a dancer and rode like the wind. His soldiers followed him without doubt, his people praised him, and none ever knew. Some say he wore a helmet even off the battlefield. Others say he wrote poetry in secret, verses about war, about honour, about loss, about a woman who once rode through fire and rain, fearless and bright. But none dared ask too much. In Japan, as in many places, the line between history and fable is thin, and sometimes the quietest stories are the ones we remember longest. Tomo Gozen lived in a time when women were not meant to fight, not meant to lead, but she did both, and perhaps when the world closed its gates to her, she slipped beneath them. She became a shadow, a new name, a quiet ruler beneath the same moon. Even today, children in Japan learn her name, Tomo. She's painted in scrolls, etched in poems, imagined in plays, sometimes fierce, sometimes sorrowful, always proud. Whether she died on the battlefield, grew old in a temple, or ruled in silence beneath another name, we cannot say. But in the stillness of this night, as your breath slows and your body sinks deeper into rest, imagine her now. She stands at the edge of a misty field. Her armour is gone, her face is calm. In her hands a sword rests quietly, not raised, not drawn, just held with memory. The wind touches her hair, and perhaps she smiles, because she knows she has not been forgotten. Not tonight, not here. 6. The King of Albania, Queen Helena of Albania. The wind moves quietly through old Europe. It brushes over mountain tops, through pine forests, over stone villages tucked into the green folds of the Balkans. It carries stories, half-truths, maybes, what-ifs, soft as a lullaby, floating through time. And in one of those stories, hidden in the fog of royal history, a question lingers. Was the king really a queen? Or rather, was a princess hidden behind the name of a prince? This is the whisper of Albania. A small nation with deep roots, fierce mountains, and a history shaped by empires. And at the edge of that history, as the 20th century begins, stands a woman named Queen Helena of Italy. But to reach her, we must step back to Prince Mirko of Montenegro, a nobleman born in 1879, second son of the Montenegrin king, and married to Natalia Konstantinovich, a cousin of the Serbian royal family. Together they had children. Together they travelled courts, smiled for portraits, signed letters, wore medals. But behind the formal poses, some historians and writers have wondered, was Prince Mirko who he appeared to be? Or was Mirko a name that belonged originally to someone else? Enter the theory. It is soft, not shouted. Found not in textbooks, but in quiet corners of speculation. Some suggest that Queen Helena of Italy, born Helena of Montenegro, may have originally lived as a male royal, a prince named Mirko, before taking on the identity of a princess, and eventually becoming queen through marriage to King Victor Emmanuel III of Italy. It is a bold idea, unproven, unlikely perhaps, but in this dream we are weaving tonight, we allow space for such maybes, because sometimes the most interesting stories are the ones that never made it into the official records. Let us imagine just for a moment that the switch happened, that a child born into royal expectations, born with the duty to be strong, to be male, to inherit titles, was not what the world expected. And rather than forcing the body to match the role was quietly changed. Perhaps one child was raised as Prince Mirko, and later disappeared from attention, fading into the backdrop of Balkan politics. And perhaps another child, smaller, quieter, began to wear dresses instead of uniforms, and learned to curtsy instead of bow. Perhaps that child became Helena, and perhaps, behind the pearls and silks, there remained something of the warrior, something of the prince, not in name, but in spirit. What we know for certain is this. Queen Helena of Italy was a strong and steady presence during turbulent times. She married into a nation that would face 2 world wars, civil unrest, and exile. She was known for her calm nature, her religious devotion, and her loyalty. She bore 5 children, she worked quietly behind the scenes. And when the monarchy fell, she lived her final years far from the throne, surrounded by family memories and fading photos. But beneath the silk and the crown, who was she really? We will never know. And maybe that's the point, because identity, like power, can wear many faces. A prince can vanish, a queen can rise, and the truth can be both hidden and lived at the same time. In royal courts, appearances matter more than facts. What is seen becomes what is believed. What is believed becomes history, and what is erased drifts into myth. There are a few documents to support this theory. No diaries, no confessions, no hidden letters. Only the feeling, small, quiet, that some royal names carry more than one soul. So as you rest now in this place between sleep and thought, imagine a quiet chamber in a royal palace. The curtains are drawn, a candle flickers, a mirror reflects a young face, half in shadow, half in gold. A hand reaches out, touches the reflection, and chooses, not prince, not princess, but a possibility. Perhaps that is what the story of Helena or Mirko offers us. Not proof, not a scandal, but a reminder that identity can bend like light, shift like water, and survive even the hardest walls of protocol and tradition. And in the quiet corners of Europe, beneath the layers of royal history, that truth still glows, unseen, but not unfelt. The waves move slowly tonight, gentle crests rising and falling under the silver glow of a quiet moon. Sails ripple in the breeze, soft and low like breathing. Somewhere in the heart of the South China Sea a ship rocks gently, its lanterns glowing gold in the dark. The sea is not still, but it is calm, and over these waters long ago ruled a pirate king unlike any other. Her name was Cheng Yi Sao, a name feared from village to village, whispered across ports and markets, spoken with a strange mix of awe and caution. Some called her a queen, some called her a widow, but many called her king. Let us begin where her story begins, in the floating world of Canton in the early 1800s. A young woman, likely born into poverty, works aboard a floating brothel. She is clever, observant, watching sailors and merchants come and go, learning how trade flows, learning how men speak, learning how to listen. Then, one day, she marries a pirate. His name is Cheng Wan, a powerful man, leader of the Red Flag Fleet, a vast group of ships that dominate the waters from the China coast to the far edges of Southeast Asia. When Cheng Wan dies suddenly, some say in a storm, others say at sea, the pirates expect the fleet to crumble. Power struggles, broken alliances, chaos. But they do not expect her. Cheng Isao, the widow, steps forward, and with quiet force she takes command. She does not shout, she does not beg, she simply rules, and they follow her. Within months she controls one of the most powerful pirate fleets in history, over 300 ships. Some say as many as 70,000 men. She set strict rules: no stealing from villagers, no harm to women, no disobedience without consequence. Those who defy her are punished. Those who stay loyal thrive. It is said she could read the sea like a map, that she knew which winds would change, which ships would falter, and when to strike. Her fleets blockaded ports, charged passage fees, and defeated entire naval forces sent to stop her. The Chinese government tried to bribe her. The British and Portuguese tried to fight her. But Chung Yi-sao stood firm, not behind her husband's name, not beside a captain, but alone, at the top, in charge. She wore what she liked, spoke how she pleased. Her words carried more weight than any admiral's. When she spoke, even seasoned pirates listened with lowered eyes. Though the world called her a woman, her role, her strength, her command was deeply masculine in the eyes of the time, and yet she never claimed to be a man. She did not hide her gender. She simply led with such complete authority that gender became irrelevant. Was her name the disguise, or was her power the only truth that mattered? In the eyes of her crew, she was not a wife or a widow. She was not a woman pretending to be strong. She was the storm, she was the sea, she was the king. The Red Flag Fleet ruled the waters for years. When naval forces failed to defeat her, officials offered her a deal, amnesty in exchange for peace, and, incredibly, she accepted. But only on her terms. She kept her wealth, she kept her freedom, she kept her ships, and she retired, alive, rich, respected. While most pirates died young, Chung Yi-sao lived into old age. She opened a gambling house, raised children, faded quietly into civilian life. But her legend did not fade. To this day, in stories passed down along the South China Sea, her name still stirs the air. They say she never truly stopped watching the waves, that her eyes remained sharp, that even in her final years, people bowed when she entered a room. A pirate king, a woman, a leader of thousands. No matter what title she wore, she ruled fully. No disguise, no apology, and perhaps that is why her story feels different. She did not vanish, she was not erased, she was not discovered and punished. She ruled, openly, as herself, and still won. In this way, Chung Yi-sao reminds us that power can wear any shape, and sometimes the most powerful thing of all is not a mask, but the choice to never put one on now, as the waves sigh gently beneath the moonlight and the sails above your dreaming mind flutter in the wind. Imagine her standing at the bow of her ship. Her hands were behind her back, her eyes fixed on the dark horizon, a storm far off, a trade ship ahead, the sea open and waiting. She breathes in and commands. No one questions. Not then. Not now. The wind is dry in colonial South America. It sweeps across red hills and dusty roads, past clay houses and slow-moving carts, over soldiers in faded coats and merchants with heavy baskets. There are horses, clinking spurs, and the smell of sweat, gunpowder, and earth. It is the 1600s, and into this hot, restless world rides a man in military uniform. His hair is cut short, his boots are worn from travel. A sword hangs at his side. His name, he tells people, is Don Alonso Diaz Ramirez de Guzman. He speaks with confidence. He fights with skill. He drinks, laughs, and moves through the world as any man would, but his name is not his own, and neither is his story, because this soldier, this bold man who commands respect and survives battles, was not born Alonso. She was born Catalina de Arauzo. And before she ever rode a horse, she wore a habit. Catalina was born in the Basque country in northern Spain around 1592. Her family was noble but strict, and at a young age, just 4 years old, she was sent to a convent to be raised as a nun. The walls of the convent were high and quiet. The rules were hard. The days were long and filled with silence, prayer, and cold discipline. Catalina was sharp-minded, restless. She did not fit the shape they wanted her to take. So one day she escaped. She cut her hair, bound her chest, took a name that sounded strong, and stepped into the world as a boy. From that moment on, Catalina lived as a man. At first, she worked small jobs, serving in shops, travelling with caravans. But soon, her path led to South America, to the wild and dangerous colonies of the Spanish Empire. There she joined the army. She became a soldier, a good one. She fought in battles, duelled in the streets, and was promoted. She was known for her temper, her skill with a blade, her bold words. She drank in taverns, gambled, and got into trouble more than once. But she always got away because she was clever, brave, and because no one suspected the truth. Catalina's life was full of danger, not just from war, but from discovery. At any moment someone might have seen through the disguise, but somehow she stayed ahead. Her secret stayed safe for years. Until it didn't. One day, after a particularly violent duel, Catalina was captured and nearly killed. As she lay wounded, she confessed, told the truth of who she was, that she had once worn a nun's robe, that she had left that life behind and become a man. People were shocked, but they were also fascinated. A woman who had fought like a man, lived like a man, commanded soldiers, taken lovers, won duels. It was too strange to punish, too bold to forget. So instead of being jailed, Catalina was sent back to Spain. And there, the strangest part of all happened. She was received by the king. She told him her story, and he pardoned her. Not only that, but he admired her courage. She was even sent to meet the Pope in Rome, and there, in the heart of the Catholic world, surrounded by holy men and laws and rules, she was forgiven. The Pope gave her special permission. She could continue to dress and live as a man, no penance, no punishment. She returned to South America with papers in her hand and freedom in her stride. She became a legend, a myth. Some called her the Lieutenant Nun. But in truth, Catalina was many things: a fighter, a wanderer, a performer, a survivor. She wore a mask, but not to deceive. She wore it to live, to escape the cage that had been built around her at birth, the rules of womanhood, the silence of the convent, the expectations of a world too small for her spirit. And so she made a new self, and lived inside it. Was she truly a man? Was she only playing a role? The truth, like all truths, may be somewhere in between. Perhaps Catalina found comfort in performance, not as a lie, but as a space of power, a way to shape the world instead of being shaped by it. And perhaps that is what we all do in small ways: choose our names, shape our roles, try on different faces until one fits. As the years passed, Catalina grew older. The duel stopped. The sword was put away. She worked as a muleteer, guiding animals through the steep paths of the Andes, a quieter life, a slower one, but always with the same sharp eyes, the same memory of who she had been and who she had chosen to become. When she died, sometime in her 60s, she left behind a memoir. It was wild, bold, not always factual, but full of truth. And in those pages she told her story, not as a woman who had sinned, or as a man who had fooled the world, but as a soul who had lived fully, fiercely, on her own terms. Tonight, as the dust of old roads settles in your thoughts, and the fires of distant inns burn low in your dreaming mind, imagine Catalina riding once more. The sky above is wide. The path ahead is open. She sits tall in the saddle, sword at her side, eyes on the horizon. She's not hiding. She's simply going forward, as herself. The night has grown deep now. Outside, the stars shift slowly across the sky. The moon, soft and pale, leans gently against the window of your mind. And in the stillness, after all the battles, the disguises, the thrones and stories, only one question remains. What makes a king? Is it a crown of gold, heavy with jewels? Is it a title passed from father to son? Is it the sound of soldiers bowing, of crowds cheering, of history remembering your name? Or is it something quieter? Tonight we have wandered through many lives, some short, some long, some praised, some hidden. Each of them carried a secret. Each of them held a crown no one expected. Some were born in palaces, others in convents or cottages. Some wore armour, some wore robes. Some lived as men, though they were not born as such. Others chose no name at all, only the freedom to move forward, unseen. And all of them ruled something, if not a nation, then a moment. If not others, then themselves. You've heard of Hatshepsut, the pharaoh who became a god. She stood before temples wrapped in linen, voice calm and full of power. Her image was carved in stone, her body disguised in statues as a man, but her spirit was unmistakably her own. You remember Hangbei, the king of Dahomey, standing proud beside warriors, a ruler erased from memory, yet still alive in song, in steps, in shrines that remember her name when no one else dares to. There was Pope Joan, wrapped in robes, her eyes lifted to the heavens. She read, prayed, ruled, and in her story, whether myth or memory, we are asked not what is true, but what is feared. Tomo Gozen, the samurai, rode through battle with fire in her veins, and when the war ended, she stepped back into the shadows. Some say she lived again as a man, others say she vanished like smoke. Either way, her blade still sings in the wind. Queen Helena, or perhaps once Prince Mirko, moved through royal rooms where names mattered more than faces. Her story may never be proven, but perhaps proof isn't the point. And what of Chenga Sao, the pirate king who ruled the South China Sea? No disguise, no fear, just power, unshaken. Her leadership broke every rule, and yet she retired in peace, richer than all the kings who tried to stop her. Catalina de Erauso, born into silence, chose noise, fought battles, led men, stood before the Pope, and was told, strangely and miraculously, that she could continue as she was. She had earned the right to her own story, and there are more, always more. Not all kings wear crowns, not all power looks like what we're told it should. Some thrones are carved from memory, some kingdoms are built in silence, some rulers lead without being seen. So again we ask, softly now, in the quiet of this moment, what makes a king? Is it the shape of the body, or the shape of the will? Is it the armour, or the courage beneath it? Is it the voice that commands, or the silence that waits until the world is ready to listen? Perhaps a king is not a person, but a choice. A quiet decision to rise when others expect you to kneel. To speak when the world expects you to stay quiet. To rule, not for glory, but for the right to exist as you are. There are no drums now, no banners, no armies. Just your breath, steady and soft, rising and falling like the sea. No more stories tonight, only the space they leave behind. Let your body relax, let your thoughts drift. Let the faces of these forgotten kings melt into the stars one by one. Let their names fall like petals, soft and slow. You don't need to remember every detail. You only need to carry the feeling, the knowing, that behind every crown, every robe, every name, there may be a secret, there may be a truth, and that truth, no matter how quietly lived, matters. So sleep now, traveller. Let the rain fall softly in your mind. Let the wind move through empty halls. Let your dreams find their own throne, built not of gold or stone, but of freedom. Close your eyes, breathe deep. Somewhere, a king sleeps too. Not in a palace, not in a temple, but here, in you.